What happens when a man who prides himself on his success and influence crosses paths with someone who may just be more than he bargained for? On a first-class flight from Los Angeles to Tokyo, an arrogant tech mogul thought he could get away with making cutting remarks about one of the world's most famous innovators, Elon Musk. But as the hours passed, Oliver Bennett's bravado would give way to a humbling revelation that would leave him questioning everything. The air was thick with anticipation at Los Angeles International Airport, where Flight 317 to Tokyo Narita was preparing for departure. First-class passengers were trickling in, among them, Oliver Bennett, a man who wore his ego like a well-tailored suit. He was no stranger to standing out. His recent tech startup had reached $1 billion valuation, and his social media feed was filled with photos of him holding expensive drinks and sharing self-congratulatory captions. "Disruption is my middle name," he once declared under a photo of himself, toasting in a private jet. Oliver had become accustomed to being the center of attention, and the world was his oyster. As he boarded, the flight attendant greeted him with a smile that was almost too practiced. She knew the type, arrogant, self-important, but she kept it professional. "Mr. Bennett, welcome aboard," she said. Oliver simply nodded, dismissing her warmth, as he moved past her into the plush first-class cabin. The seats, resembling private pods, were a world away from the cramped back rows of economy, offering him the space and luxury he felt he deserved. Oliver's seat, 2A, was strategically positioned near the window, where he could settle in, remove his blazer with a flourish, and bury himself in the screen of his laptop. He was too important to engage with the common travelers around him. The person in 2B, however, caught his eye. A man in a plain hoodie and worn sneakers, with a baseball cap that shaded his face. Oliver barely spared a glance, assuming it was just another tech guy trying to live the same high-powered dream he was chasing. The man in 2B didn't make an immediate impression. He slipped into his seat quietly, and when he muttered a simple "evening," Oliver merely nodded and muttered a half-hearted reply. As the plane took off, Oliver's attention was diverted to more important matters, his social media. A few 100,000 followers could never be ignored, after all. The man in 2B declined the champagne the flight attendants offered, opting instead for a bottle of water. Oliver couldn't help himself. "Water?" he scoffed under his breath. "Might as well be in coach." The man didn't react, maintaining his calm demeanor and offering a faint smile. That should have been the end of it, but for Oliver, it was just the beginning. The flight was at cruising altitude when he turned toward his quiet seatmate, his curiosity getting the better of him. "So, what do you do?" he asked. The question laced with disinterest but trying to feign politeness. The man simply replied, "I'm in tech." "Oh, same here," Oliver said, almost smugly. "Bet we've got some more stories to share." But the man didn't engage. Instead, he went back to scrolling through his phone, seemingly uninterested in the overture. Oliver, now both curious and annoyed, persisted. "You know," he began, "the tech world is full of people who get way too much credit for half-baked ideas. Take Elon Musk, for example. People keep calling him a genius, but have they ever stopped to think about how reckless he is?" There was a brief pause. The man in 2B didn't immediately respond, which only fueled Oliver's irritation. "SpaceX? Sure, it's impressive if you like throwing billions at exploding rockets. And Tesla? Overrated. Don't even get me started on Twitter, disaster." A soft chuckle came from the man, almost imperceptible, but enough to light a fire inside Oliver. His irritation turned into something else, something more competitive, more pointed. He leaned forward and pressed on. "You think I'm wrong?" The man simply replied, "No. I think you're passionate." Oliver, unsure whether this was a compliment or an insult, scoffed. "Passionate? I call it realistic. People like Musk, they just ride the wave of hype. Nothing more. People like me, we're the real innovators, building the future, not just blowing hot air." The man offered a polite smile, clearly unmoved, and returned to his phone. Oliver leaned back, satisfied with his victory. He thought he had won the conversation. But little did he know, the calm demeanor of the man in 2B wasn't ignorance, it was restraint. As the hours passed, Oliver's growing irritation began to reflect his need for dominance. He couldn't understand how anyone could ignore him, especially when he had all the answers. In his mind, everyone else was just a wannabe compared to his genius. He continued to needle his seatmate, offering sharp comments about the tech industry, about Musk's hyped-up ventures, about anything that would elicit a reaction. Finally, Oliver couldn't help but ask again. Let me guess, you're one of those startup guys? Something in crypto or AI, right? Everyone's jumping on those bandwagons these days. The man, still calm and collected, gave no more than a shrug. Not exactly. Oliver couldn't take it anymore. His ego couldn't bear being ignored like this. What's your take on Musk then? I mean, you're in tech. You must have an opinion. The man hesitated for a moment, then shrugged again. He's done some interesting things. Interesting things? Oliver laughed. That's the understatement of the century. The guy's a walking contradiction. Preaching about saving the planet while flying private jets, hyping up the future of Mars while barely addressing problems here on Earth. Finally, the man spoke up again, but this time his words caught Oliver off guard. Maybe he's just doing what he thinks is best. Oliver scoffed. What he thinks is best. Spoken like someone who's never actually dealt with real-world consequences. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of dinner. Oliver's steak arrived exactly as he ordered, while the man chose a simple vegetarian meal. Throughout the meal, Oliver couldn't help but notice how calm and composed his seatmate remained. There was a quiet confidence about the man, a sense of inner peace that Oliver couldn't quite understand. As the flight wore on, whispers from the flight attendants hinted that there was something about the man that was different. They addressed him respectfully, and Oliver started to feel a sense of unease. Who was this guy? As the evening wore on, Oliver's curiosity about his seatmate grew, but he couldn't figure out why. The man's demeanor didn't fit the usual mold of someone in the tech world. He wasn't brash or loud, and he didn't seem to care about making an impression. His composure intrigued Oliver, but also frustrated him. Oliver tried one last time. All right, what's your deal? You've been sitting there all calm and mysterious. Let me guess, you're some venture capitalist? An eccentric trust fund kid? The man chuckled softly, but didn't offer much more than a vague response. As Oliver looked him over once again, he was struck by something about the man's jawline, the way he carried himself, that nagged at him. The flight passed, but Oliver couldn't shake the feeling that he had missed something. As the plane descended into Tokyo, he tried to let it go. Just some eccentric rich guy, he thought. No big deal. But the nagging feeling wouldn't go away. Something about the man in 2B was different, something he had missed. It wasn't until after the flight that the truth came out. The man in 2B wasn't just some tech entrepreneur, he was Elon Musk himself. The quiet demeanor, the calm responses, it was all part of Musk's personal approach to life. Oliver's brash, arrogant insults had fallen on the ears of the one person he had dared to criticize the most. And he had no idea. Oliver Bennett, the self-proclaimed innovator, had insulted the one person whose name was synonymous with innovation. And the best part? He had no idea who he was speaking to. In the end, the man who thought he could get away with belittling Musk was left with the painful realization that he had just insulted the wrong person at the wrong time. It was a lesson in humility he would never forget.